Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel today for another review kicking off 2025. Zero and I are here to talk about the long and possibly highly anticipated film Wolfman, which is coming to theaters January 17th. We have both now had our chance to check out an early screening. We got so much to cover with this film, really to talk about the hype leading into this film. Zero going to give us a little bit about what she was able to kind of pick from the brain of the director himself and the family, I will say too, in terms of the promotional work getting to this point. But it is January of 2025, and we have another Blumhouse production, which I also have notes on that one as well too. But I'm gonna keep it 100. This wasn't something I said I was going to. We was kind of storyboarding how we was gonna go about our review today. But Blumfest, which obviously we both were a part of, and attending and cover at New York Comic Con. Of all the different titles that was announced with that, Wolfman being the first, and obviously some of the other ones is the bigger one, shall I say, is obviously Megan 2.0, Five Nights at Freddy's sequel, and a few others. I'm just kind of wondering for you, where did this one sort of sit on the list for you in terms of your excitement?
Well, I will be honest. You know me, I am an honest critic, but I'm also very easy to please. And that being said, I am a werewolf girl.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
are.
to my right here, I got my David Kessler, from American Werewolf in
Yeah,
London.
yeah,
The wolf, it's within me. It really is. So obviously, this one is the highest on my list of anticipated movies for 2025 Blumhouse releases.
yeah.
Did I have my all of my eggs in one basket for this one? Definitely not. But regardless, whenever I see a werewolf movie, there are specific things that I look for to emulate the greats and keep in touch with the subgenre that is this transformation creature feature kind of situation. So, I'm never looking for the ultimate big picture with this
Yeah.
very specific subgenre, but
Mhm.
it is something that is near and dear to my heart. And we'll get into the things that I like and the things that I dislike, but I think that I had a pretty accurate hypothesis about what
Okay.
this movie would be like. And I don't feel like my time was wasted, but we'll get into a little bit more of that then. What do you think?
I will say all the announcements of films that were coming out for the Blumfest and the Blumhouse slate of films for 2025. I had the Black Phone too as my highest. But I also think, and again, tips the hat to you and your amazing work as a journalist and speaking to the director. This one very silently creeped up on my list. I think by time you were done, and I really kind of sat back and thought about it, I was like, I'm actually really excited because this one may have the biggest opportunity to show. And I'm such a sucker for practical effects. I think this one has the biggest room to really present that in a way, in a
Hell
subgenre
yeah.
that's extremely popular, that like you either come up to bat and swing and hit a home run, or you fail miserably.
Hmm.
And I felt a little bit more confident. But in my measure of lack of confidence, I've been saying this to anybody who's been talking to me about films this year, specifically in January is a throwaway month.
Yep.
And when it comes down to films in January, it's typically ones that, obviously not an Oscar contention because it's out of eligibility. So they probably shifted into this month because they figured they didn't have a bigger film than what they thought they may have had. It's also a
Right.
very low key month to kind of bring in some cash. Then the Thieves 2 is doing very good right now, low key. And I think there's just low expectations. And when you look at historically with
Right.
January and Blumfest, they also haven't been good. so outside of Megan, which I know
Right.
folks
The
will say
one
about Megan,
exception.
the one
Mhm.
exception, they just haven't been good. And I won't sit here and never say that Night Swim was a good film, because as much as I wanted to love it, as much as they hyped up the aquatic horror, It very much failed on that note. So I think this film, I was very much going into the theaters like, okay, truly, let's see what you have. And I will say that I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, but I definitely have the utmost appreciation for this film. The production was stellar, and to kind of really read my pull quote. I thought this film was brutal and it was vicious. It really did showcase impressive sound mixing, um, the,
Mhm.
the the practical effects, and then the hard working special effects crew that brought the monster stirs to life, which makes it very. I thought this film really, the use of its incredible atmospheric locations and scenery, immersing viewers into
Yes.
the world. So yeah, they really nailed it on those notes. But anyway, before we go into it, and before I even let you get into that, I need you to do what you always beautifully do for us here. Is what is this film about? Director, our actors, what we got?
So we have another Universal Monsters remake, reboot, legacy situation from Lee Winnell. You might have recognized that name from the last movie that we saw before the world ended in 2020, which was The Invisible Man. I
Yep.
know that was my last movie in the actual theater. That one was a hit. It was very highly regarded. And now he's taking on another Universal Monsters property, which is The Wolfman. So some people have suspected that Lee Winnell is going to be going further into the Universal monsters and taking them on one by one. I am very glad that Wolfman was the next, for reasons that I already explained. I'm just a wolf girl. I'd be howling at the moon at night. Yes, the hell I do. So this one here, we have a family-oriented story. It stars Christopher Abbott, who I don't think anyone has anything bad to say about. Very happy with that casting, and I did have my doubts when doing research before seeing this film, but I know that Chris Abbott is somebody who I could put, maybe 3 or 4 eggs in one basket. I have very high faith in his ability to perform, and I know that he has the range, so I know that there's something there. So Christopher Abbott is a family man. He's a father of a daughter who I'm gonna say is maybe 8 to 10 years old. Real cute. She was acting her little butt off. She did what she had to do. And also, he has a wife with a little troubling marriage situation in the beginning of this film. They're figuring out how to get it together. That's it. I mean, very relatable, which I do think is a wise choice for a werewolf story, especially after learning what I learned from Lee Winnell on the carpet after Blumfest at Comic Con. But we have a family who's a little bit broken. It's not exactly in shambles yet, but it's a little bit broken. And as an attempt to heal and solidify their family dynamic, we go on a short trip up to Oregon, I believe. I
From New
don't
York,
know.
right?
Yep, from New
Yeah,
York,
and I
from
don't
my
think they
city.
said yeah, and I don't think they said exactly where in Oregon, but definitely Oregon. Very beautifully scenic countryside way of
Yes.
Oregon.
Wherever like the most trees are in Oregon, just like right in the middle of there, which historically in this world has an issue where something goes on after dusk. It's
Yeah,
not safe to be outside. We get that from a little bit of a flashback from our main character Blake's childhood, and we have a little bit of themes of trauma here, and using transformation and sickness and disease as a vehicle to describe familial trauma, to describe personal anxieties, and pushing them onto ones you love. So, really interesting. I think that we could have taken a little bit more creative risk, but I do think that it's a safe bet to use a werewolf story and blend it into something that could be relatable to many audiences, because that's really scary. We don't have to worry about walking outside and werewolves getting us. That's just not the world that we live in, fortunately. But unfortunately, familial trauma and family dynamic relationships and bonds becoming loosened is something that we do have to worry about as humans, who are social beings. So merging those two things I think is a safe bet. But that's pretty much the bones of this story, besides the obvious.
yeah. So really quickly, tell us a little bit about the interview and some aspects of that interview that either to share with the audience or hear that really sort of prepared you for this film?
Mhm. Well, as a lover and consumer of werewolf media, I really wanted to know what's going to make this one different. And Lee Winnell has a really good eye, especially with his history in writing rooms, for taking something and putting a little bit of a spin on it. So I'm curious, because werewolf media has been around for so long, what's going to make this different when you line it up with all the rest? And so I asked him exactly that, and he said that that was the highest thing on his list that he wanted to pay the ultimate attention to, because it's kind of like the Joker. And this is actually the analogy that he gave to me. When we think about the Joker, depending on, how old we are, what type of media we're into, we have a specific Joker that pops up in our minds. For me, that's always going to be Heath Ledger. But if you line them up all next to each other, you get a really cool kind of like rainbow effect of similar versions and renditions of
Mhm.
characters with the same base um, that can be relatable to different categories and genres and ages of people, as this IP grows, which is something that I feel really um, strongly about, because I don't ever want these characters to die, whether they be the Joker, the Invisible Man, Frankenstein. I think we should always have these stories, and these characters should evolve with the times in order to keep them alive. So Lee Winnell really wanted to go the nasty route with this. And he said he did the same thing with the Joker. He thought about, in his mind, all of his favorite renditions of the Wolfman, werewolves, etc., lined them up and said, where does mine fit in between?
Mhm.
And the way we went was removing comedy, because comedy is something that sticks really, really hard onto werewolf media. Think
Yeah.
about American Werewolf in London. We had just another werewolf movie, I want to say like 3 weeks ago. It was hilarious. I loved it.
Twilight.
But Twilight, come on. Like, I mean, today, if you watch it today, absolutely. Back in 2006, I don't know what to tell you,
I
but
bet.
today, absolutely. It's kind of like a horror comedy. It's two things that merge together very well. So Lee Winnell wanted to take that out and turn this into a story um that is relatable in the family dynamic, and that is more scary than anything. And let's be real, he was one that understands, because he did let me know on the carpet that sometimes werewolves can be ridiculous. They can. I don't think anyone's arguing that. I really don't. So how do we take the ridiculousness, the comedy out of the werewolf and make it something that we can all fear? And this is what I love. So he told me that with this, his little spin on the Wolfman is he's going to go a little Cronenbergy. He's going to give us a little body horror blessing, which is, again, a body horror girl. I'm like, all right, Lee, take us away. Take us away. And that's exactly what happened. So by explaining the werewolf lore and showing it to us in through a body horror lens, which I think is the most important when we're talking about transformations, because that is what makes werewolf movies werewolf movies. Was very pleased to hear that, because that tells me, in my little nerdy film girl brain, that we're going to have ultimate transformations. And those transformations are going to be fueled by the fear of sickness and disease, and watching somebody that you love and you care about. And maybe you have some strings that are, left untied, and to see them go through that sickness without tying up the ends of your relationships and fixing your bonds. That's a really, really scary thing and relatable thing to
Yeah.
witness. We all have a family member who maybe was gone too soon before we got to tell them that one last thing that we really needed to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's real, and that's scary.
Yeah.
So I think that he did a pretty good job with that part. That's really what brought me to the theater, and I really do hope that there are other werewolf lovers like myself out there that is the reason that we're coming to the theater. Because if that is the reason, there is a very strong chance you will leave happy and satisfied. And even further, I have my doubts with Blumhouse, because Blumhouse is becoming an empire at this point, and it has a fan base, a very diverse fan base at that we need to make sure, everyone leaves full. Everyone is happy at the end of the screening. So
Yeah.
sometimes we're not taking risks that we should.
Yeah.
Specifically with this werewolf and the image that Lee Winnell had in his mind with it being very body horror forward, there were some risks taken that I was very surprised to see in a Blumhouse movie. I'm not even going to hold you. So what
Yeah.
he told me on the carpet, I do believe was true and shows in the final film.
I mean, this again goes back to obviously why I love covering films with you is because I think how are able to really look at this from like a philosophical level, and obviously with the knowledge and information you've been able to get from Lee, it does show you how layered this film was in a way I didn't even notice it. And this is sort of like my sort of my campaign behind the movie Smiles, that people aren't looking at it as deep as what the film is really trying to tell you here. Which is so funny because Jesse Eisenberg also said he saw it the same way I saw it when it came down to how layered and sort of the metaphor of what it means to smile. So transformation here is
Mhm.
definitely one, and trauma is definitely one that I thought they did explore, which I wish they would have went just a little bit deeper into. But with
Mhm.
that being said, let me just get a few things off my chest. Christopher Abbott, fantastic job. Julia Gardner and Matilda Firth, who plays Ginger, Charlotte, and Blake. First of all, I have to be honest, nothing to take away from Christopher's performance, but the moment I watched it, and just because this may be a biased statement, but I think it's damn true, I will be lying to you if I did not say that when I looked at this performance, I said, God damn, Josh Rubin would kill this if he had this.
Oh man. Oh my gosh. Shout out to the buddy, the homie Josh Rubin.
Yeah,
Man, give him a werewolf IP. You
man.
are so right. You are so fucking correct with that one. Yep. Yes,
and,
sir.
and and sending love to the buddy, as you know, him and his wife going through a horrific time
Yes.
in LA right now. But I mean, when I talk about people who transform, Josh right now is that premier person that I think everybody should be looking at and realizing he is truly the next big thing, whether he's filmmaking or whether he's acting. I've seen him in a very likable, lovable way become unhinged in a second, right
Oh
before our
yeah.
eyes, and you're just like, holy hell. And I think Christopher's portrayal, I'm saying, or Christopher portrayal as a family man whose whole sole purpose was to protect his daughter. He put that and may even prioritize that over his own safety, his own
Mhm.
health,
Mhm.
and his wife and their marriage that is in limbo right now because she is a successful, I'd say relatively successful woman in New York who probably need just a little bit of additional motivation or push to continue doing what he does. He believes in her, but it's a
Mhm.
struggle for him. But Christopher as Blake has this very unique relationship with his daughter Ginger, one that even a wife may even envy, which you already know.
Mhm.
She done birthed that child, she done carried that child, and now because work isn't going the way she wanted, her absence within the household, she's literally seeing her family deteriorate in a way she can never imagine, which in a way, I have to be honest, I think they did a fantastic job in really drawing that arc out the entire time, because although we've seen Charlotte protect Ginger, I never truly felt the true mother-daughter bond, because the bond was definitely between the dad and the
Oh
daughter
yes.
through every aspect of this. But anyway, dear no dear, Blake and his transformation is all I'm gonna talk about, because the one thing that's featured in the very first part of this film before we have a 30-year jump is we see Blake and his dad relationship and the trauma that is created not only between that, but also the trauma from the events that happen. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, my first thing I thought was like, all right, bro. So you firsthand have witnessed what everybody has deemed to be almost like a folklore or urban legend. Like you've seen it. Like if I seen the Blair Witch around my way, I'm not going back. But my man seen it firsthand, and it threw me off that the fact that he seen and witnessed this firsthand, and he decides, hey, let's just bring my family back into the trenches here, especially my daughter, the one I really want to protect, and it's going to be
Right,
okay.
right. A
So
choice.
this yeah, a choice for real, because this was less of a I heard thing. This was like a nah, I witnessed it thing. No gaslighting, but it's okay.
Mhm.
It can't be a problem again, could it? So But I do think again the themes of dad protecting the daughter, the trauma between Blake when he was a kid to now him being an adult, and then obviously the husband and wife situation. I thought that they all introduced it all very well. They just didn't fully execute in terms of, I feel, making us really feel these different things. Like I would have loved to have seen the dad or the grandfather at this rate have, you know, a little bit more of a undying almost loyalty to protect his son, instead of it
Mm-hmm.
feeling like a complete devotion to discovering if this mythic legend or this seeing being is actually a thing. Seeing like he's more dedicated to his work than he was about his family. Because if you had
Right.
saw that, then you automatically believe that Blake witnessed firsthand what it meant to protect your kid by any means necessary, which when he has to does it for his daughter, you're just like, boom, got it. Understand
Mm-hmm.
how this works. So you don't quite see that, but you did see the anger transfer.
Oh
That I
yeah.
did pick up on.
Oh yes.
So yeah, little stuff like that. I wish that we were able to really dive into the mental health aspect of it just a little bit more deeper. And I could probably talk about that so much more. But the last thing I'll say before I give it to you is that the film was brutal. You already talked about it. Listen, there was a lot of implied gore and horror, particularly in the beginning. But once they started to peel back the banana little by little, or orange, wherever it may be, I mean, special effects crew. I hope you all cashed your check, spent it, and those residuals come in, because I mean every bit of whatever they were able to do, top tier, from the reveal to the monster reveal to the I'll just say to the disembodied body parts or
There
members
we
or
go.
people, and all of that, so good. I love the locations, the obviously the house. I love, you know, how they were able to utilize the woods, and obviously even the beautiful parts of Oregon that they was able to display. I loved all of that. Wolf mannerisms. It's always been a thing that we always assume what it looked like. Wolf man mannerisms. I even
Mm-hmm.
thought that they made this feel very familiar but yet unique. So
Mm-hmm.
when you got to see how the wolf moved around, even standing on twos, standing on fours, whatever it may be, I thought they did a good job with that. Sound mixing is the key element to this film, because when they have to introduce the animalistic instincts, who
Mm-hmm. The
and
wolf vision. It's
my
great.
favorite part, the duality between human and animal instincts, from when you see from the perspective of a wolf to a
Mm-hmm.
human, and human to a wolf, to the point that you can't help to think in your mind, I wonder if this is exactly how it is. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a horror itself, because I will tell you that you talked about all the little elements of it, but there's a small measure of communication being a huge element in this, because there's a
Definitely.
communication issue between the husband and wife, there's communication issues between father and daughter, and obviously the
Mm-hmm.
daughter being young and obviously not understanding these things. But then it also becomes a communication issue between animal and human. And when they
Right.
were able to
Mm-hmm.
see those different vantage points, and how much you can lose by not communicating, but how much you can
Mm-hmm.
gain when you can, I said, God damn, where's the therapist? Because
Yeah.
they out here preaching through
And
very
it gets a little
subliminal things.
emotional
It
with that
does.
part too, because like we talked about just a couple minutes ago, there is some sort of like longing here, and obviously this guy wants to fix his relationships. He wants to fix up his family a little bit. By the time we actually get to the point where we're willing to take those steps, you're trying your best. You're trying your best to communicate, but you physically can't. You can't, and he says it in the film, I don't know what's going on. I can't understand you. And on the other side, they can't understand him either. So as much as you're trying to communicate and trying to, granted, whether it be get out of the house, or we need to talk about boundaries and situations, regardless, you're trying to communicate with someone and it's just not working. That's layered, man. That's layered.
Yeah, yeah. Last few things I'll say is that I'm always a big sort of I guess I'm like a big fan of and I sort of take the critic hat over this, but like as a consumer of TV and film, I'm always a big fan of like understanding the human element in terms of like how I engage with the film. And I want to say, like, I thought they did a fantastic job in everybody making smart decisions, because you always talk about I wouldn't do that and this and
Mhm.
that. So I thought they
That's
did a
true.
really good job in making the decisions either relatable or even believable. But for me, I would say like intelligent decisions were made left and right in this. So I definitely
Okay.
enjoyed that. That did
Yeah.
not throw me out of it. Last thing I will say is there is a scene where a moving truck, U-Haul may have
Mhm.
it, an accident occurs. That scene is
Tense.
insane. Insane. It's not the best scene, because the best scene is the scene I know you're going to talk about. So I'll give it to
Yeah.
you. I'm not taking it away. But this scene is insane. How it's shot, cinematography was good up and down the board. There was some of these side panning shots that really immersed you into the transformations. But I just gotta say, this truck accident scene, top tier. Holy hell, it was good. But for the best scene and for anything else you want to add before we close out, go for it.
Okay. First, I'm gonna say you are very nice. You are a very nice man. Okay, very nice guy. You should be blessed if you have Najee reviewing your films. What I'm gonna say is everything that I loved about this film had to do with Chris Abbott and the wolf itself. Everything else, I am extremely underwhelmed. I think this is a extremely conventional but visually gorgeous
Mhm.
movie.
Right with you.
Um, and I don't think that that makes it bad. I really don't, because again, y'all already know what I came to the theater for. So I think that maybe, and I can't speak for Lee Winnell, but when I watch this movie, I'm feeling that maybe most of the creative risk that he was either willing or allowed to take was centered on the wolf itself. No creative risk at all was taken for the story, which was
Mhm. Mhm.
pretty disappointing. I think if we sit down for like 10 minutes and really think about it, I do believe that we could find similar horror movies that have this background of familial trauma and bringing it back,
Yeah.
and even as specific as a family goes on a vacation and then shit hits the fan. We've seen it all before, especially the trauma thing.
Mhm.
And I just think it was pretty unoriginal. And also, on top of that, for Lee Winnell being the seasoned writer that he is and having all of these movies with our buddy James Wan under his belt, I'm pretty disappointed in the writing as well. There were really great moments where it feels like Lee Winnell's writing to me, and then it would be followed up by something really cheesy, something really corny, and it takes me straight out of it. And that's when I start to feel like the themes of familial pressure and trauma and relationships are being a little bit too pushed to the forefront,
Mm.
where otherwise I think we could, we got it, we can get it. You don't have to say, what I'm trying to say is that I love you. Girl,
Yeah.
you're married. Why is it so
Oh,
hard to say I love you to your husband?
oh, you're right. I forgot. I
You know what I
cringed at
mean?
that. Oh, you're right. Oh my God,
And
I forgot about that. Yeah.
things like that happen maybe, I want to say, 4 or 5 times throughout the film, where I'm in it and I have empathy and I'm like, wow, this really sucks for this family. And then some weird piece of dialogue pops up and I'm like, this is a Lifetime movie, guys.
Hey,
What the hell happened? I don't know. Um,
can I tell you really quickly, when she was saying
yes.
that, much like I won't give anything away, but much like the receiver here, I was kind of like, I ain't hearing that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he couldn't make it out. I was the same. I was like, I'm not hearing that shit. Like, what we
Uh-uh.
talking about here?
Crazy. And I also feel like there was a lot of pacing
Yeah.
issues.
Yes,
And
yes, yes,
it
yes.
feels like to me that the things that we're missing, the little moments that are missing to make the pacing feel a little bit more cohesive, probably were there at one point. but were taken out, because everything else feels pretty cohesive in terms of runtime and the flow of the movie. But there's some points where I feel like, you know what, maybe they took that out after a test screening, or maybe, you know, they were
Hmm.
worried about the runtime and had to take some things out.
Yeah.
That didn't make a lot of sense to me. I thought that the initial start of the transformation happened very quickly,
Hmm.
and the characters, um, the wife and daughter, are seeing. They know more than the viewer does, which tells me that something was maybe cut out, because at certain points it doesn't make sense to me when this man is just, he's regular sick, you know, like I live in New York, the
Yeah.
norovirus is going around. He looks like some guy who probably just caught the norovirus and he's
Yeah.
spending his weekends on the toilet. Doesn't exactly
There.
seem like, you know, I don't understand what's wrong with you. So I feel like some things were taken out. Were
Fully
um
agree, because even the assessment over the radio was kind of like, well, how do you know that? You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
I
then, but
don't
I understand
understand.
the prognosis here, and I would even say too. I think, two things I want to say really quickly. When I looked at the promotional material, and obviously it's featuring Julia and Matilda, I kept wondering, with a story starting off about Christopher's character Blake not being on here, how did we get to that point? Because we definitely spent a good 25 minutes in terms of introducing this character Blake, who you understand and sort of empathize with from everything he's been through for the last 30
Mhm.
something years. And then you look at the promotional materials, like, I don't see him anywhere. So what's the issue here? So I say that there was definitely, in terms of pacing, but even in terms of suspicion, it also
Mhm.
didn't really, it wasn't so cohesive on like landing to where the promotional material made sense to why that's what it
I
is. I feel
agree.
you could have made that a little bit more of a mystery as you went down the journey. But last thing I really want to quickly say was, I want everybody to remember, and this is something I would say to take into the theaters. Blake Cole's goal was to protect his daughter Ginger.
Mhm.
Blake did that for about 90% of the film. No, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
98% of the film. I wonder why anybody would think otherwise, and why certain events had to happen if his motivation the entire time was always that. May not look the same, may not be acting the
Mhm.
same, may not be the same, whatever. But you have done nothing to show or to showcase that your daughter was ever in danger, because that's all you ever did was protect. I very much questioned the ending decision to the
Yeah,
top degree. Did not make sense.
definitely.
Even to the point that
I
they gave
have
up
no
that, like,
closure.
even to the point that the daughter and father has this sort of bond with each other where they read each other's thoughts, and why it seems like a game, but there could be something there, let's just call it what it is. But even that was a part where I was just like, oh, they're gonna go that. That's why that was such a thing. And it's like, oh no, no.
Never mind. Yeah. And if that's not going to be the route, I can be liberal and say there's a world where the route with his relationship with his wife could be, you know, the placeholder instead. For me, as the audience
That's wild.
member,
That's
I am
wild.
just asking myself questions. I am asking myself, why is she doing the most?
Wow.
Honestly, why is she doing the most? She clearly hates her husband. She's
Wow.
jealous because he has the relationship with their daughter that she was not able to work to earn. Why?
Wow.
I just want to know why. And neither the relationship between him and his daughter with the whole protection thing,
Wow.
or the whole point that we're here in the first place is to try to make sure that you're happy with me as a family unit, because, you know, we only have so much time on this earth. I didn't get closure for either of them.
Wow.
Not at all.
Wow.
So I don't, yeah, this, extremely disappointed in the story, but I can't lie to you and say that I expected something over the moon, especially after talking to Lee Winnell, and the focus of pretty much everything he said was about the Wolfman character itself. And so I believe that maybe a little bit of neglect was, or a little bit, a lot of neglect in the writer's room and pacing and editing choices. But of course, I will end this on a high note. And when I say the transformation scenes, and we have like two and a half of them, they come in like slow bits, maybe let's say 20, 30 minutes apart from each other.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I am so glad that, a large budget was gone into practical effects and having things be physical and real. You can't do werewolf without that shit. You
Yeah.
just can't. It's impossible. You'll disappoint the audience. So I while I might not fully agree with the Cronenberg analogy that he gave me on the red carpet, we do have a body horror blessing on our hands. And again, like I said earlier, Blumhouse was willing to take risks that I would not expect from this
Yeah.
production company in terms of violence and gore and blood. And it was pretty gross. And I get what Lee Winnell is saying now. This is, a man that is suffering from some sort of mysterious sickness that is the worst possible scenario that you could think of happening to your body, and you have no idea what's going on with you. Vomit and confusion and physical changes. I thought it was great. I really did. And I like that they stretched it out too, and made this transformation a little slower than just 1 minute he's sick, the next minute he's a werewolf. The design itself, I'm cool with. I It's definitely a unique version of a werewolf because I've never seen a werewolf character that is more man than wolf. It's usually the other way around. It'll be like werewolf top with the man body standing on two legs. So that was kind of interesting because it's clearly a man
Good
who's just
point.
lost it,
Yeah.
completely fucking lost it. So that was interesting. And there's definitely some moments in, if you do see this in theaters, I might have you grit your teeth a little bit, or
Mm-hmm.
loosen up the collar on your sweater or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Definitely gonna
But
hold your breath.
yeah, and
Wait for
I'm
something to
sure that
jump
I
out at you.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I am settling at a firm 2 stars. I saw this one in the theater. The story did not move me
Yeah.
really at all. I'm disappointed in the dialogue because clearly these are all seasoned actors. I don't know about Matilda. I don't know if I've seen her in anything else before, but Christopher Abbott and Julia Garner, you can tell that they're seasoned actors. But we've talked about this all the time. When you give them questionable dialogue, there's only so much that a great actor can do with it, and I
Yeah.
think that's what we see again in this one, much like we did with Wyatt Russell in Night Swim last year. Remember that? Because he's a
Yeah.
phenomenal actor as well, and that was
Yeah.
weird. That was very
Yeah.
strange. But again, what I showed up to the movie to see, which is a cool werewolf, and a big budget production company really put their foot into a werewolf transformation. That's what I got. And the last thing I will say is the reason why I had these suspicions about the quality of all the aspects of the movie is, one, what we talked about the January slate. It's a really questionable time. We can put our guesses in for what comes out in January. In addition to that, I have this new theory that I have sprung up probably within the past 2 years of reviewing movies together with you. But we have to pay attention to marketing also, because marketing tells us things that will give us a little bit of clues about what we can expect about a film. This werewolf was all over Twitter, all over Twitter, all over Twitter in September for the Halloween Horror Nights reveal.
Yeah.
And after reading all up on that, seeing the scare actors over at Universal in Orlando and Hollywood, I started to have my suspicions about what's going down. And after watching the movie, I do think that a lot of this might have been publicity forward. That one scene that, granted, I did enjoy it and it was very tense, but the U-Haul crash,
Yeah.
did not that seem like a Universal ride to you? That seems like
Oh.
something I might be walking through if I were to pull up at Horror Nights.
Oh.
So that's
Nice.
what I see there. Maybe that could have been influence as to why we have a more man-looking werewolf as opposed to werewolf.
Good
Just
point.
things to think about.
Yeah.
Take consideration into marketing,
Yeah.
why things are let go when they are. But again, I can't say I was disappointed because I did have my suspicions, but what I wanted to see when I went to the theater, I saw it all.
Yeah. I'm 2.5 out of 5, so didn't love it, didn't hate
Okay.
it, as I said in the beginning. I definitely would recommend people to see if you don't have anything to see this month. You definitely won't go in like, wow, wasting my time. And I think it's layered as we talked about here, and hopefully this review, sort of breakdown gives you a little bit of expectation, but also still gives you the thirst to want to go out there and check it out, because that's what we like to do here, one way or
Yeah.
another.
Mhm.
Yeah, listen, there's some limbs being chewed on, and it's barbaric
So
as they come.
good. It's so
But
good. It's
yeah,
so good.
you will absolutely enjoy it. And I gotta say, this is the most horrific way ever to inherit property. So there is that. Anyway, Wolfman is in theaters January 17th, folks. Let us know in the comments your thoughts, your predictions, and your excitement for this one. And then once you check it out, come back in the comments and let us know your review or your recap or whatever it is about it. And it's 2025. We're kicking it off with Wolfman, and we'll be here the entire year and so many more for more content here. So we truly appreciate you checking us out here for this one, and we'll see y'all back very soon for another review. Thank you for watching, folks.